Good evening. So I had a particular problem come up this week where I could tell that somebody was telling the truth to an extent that I could feel that they were at least concealing things that matter, not small things. So this had to deal with someone gave me a timeline where a bunch of stuff happened. And the last time I spoke to this person, now this is business related. Let's say that first. This isn't a friend, right? Not in the same way that I've known this person for years and we've been through a lot together. Nothing like that. But this person gave me a timeline that I knew wasn't quite right, and so I approached it with some compassion first, which is a good way to approach something like that. Yeah, I wasn't about to go on guns blazing because that didn't seem appropriate. Something literally said, "Hey, just don't say anything about what you suspect." Right, and so I suspected that some of the stuff was true, and some of the stuff, it was a very long list, right? Some of the stuff was true, and some of the stuff just kind of, there was something about it that was just kind of off. And so I approached it with compassion, and so I did some compassionate things for that person and their family, which seemed appropriate, and I believe that was appropriate, actually. But I also felt like I already knew that wasn't the whole truth, but I suspected that wasn't even the half truth, that I'm talking about the situation as a whole. So since then, come to find out, yes, these things happened, but they did not happen in the past month that the person claimed it was, right? And if they had happened 2 weeks before, I'm not talking about that. Some of these things happened 6 months previously. And this person is using that as a reason to kind of shaft some responsibilities, we'll say. And so I know these are real things that happened. I know I knew from other sources they really didn't care much about some of those things happening because they were kind of expected. So these are largely being used as an excuse. But maybe they were also having maybe they were just being honest with, say, me and the other people involved, and just not honest with anybody else, which seems okay. Whatever. This person doesn't know me. We aren't good friends, right? There's no reason. There's no reason for that. So I do know that some of those things are real. I just know that the timeline is real fucked up. Some of these things happened a long while ago, and they're literally just using them as an excuse to get out of, say, a debt that they are owed. That they owe, not are owed. And some of these things, the debt wouldn't have happened if they hadn't kind of done what I suspect of some fuckery at work, right? Which caused some problems with them getting, let go. All right. But maybe that wasn't the case. Maybe it wasn't. So what are we going to do? Are we just going to say, "Oh, you're full of fucking shit"? Well, no, we're not going to do that. What we are going to do is we are going to fish around for an entity. That means that's actually not appropriate, but we're going to fish around for an entity and say, "Hey, I think these things might be true, but if they aren't, would you mind reversing whatever you're going to do?" And then we can hold hands and get a kumbaya moment while this beneficial working turns into a baneful. And those entities aren't necessarily. Sometimes it takes a personal relationship, and so that's what's happening here. Now, what you're seeing here is the statue of Hecate in front of me. I had the intention of asking several entities for specific parts, but Hecate wanted them, almost all of them. There is another second part to this ritual that will happen that I have to do, but I literally don't have room here to do this. Now, before we get started, there was a very serious occurrence that happened right outside my ritual space earlier. I'm preparing for ritual. I'm listening to the same ritual music I'm listening to now that I have on repeat. Paleo Wolf. I'll put a link in the description. It's one of the best pieces of ritual music I have ever heard. I own it on 3 different platforms. Amazing. Paleo Wolf Origins is the name. Origins is the song. So, I was standing out here, getting ready, getting all this stuff ready. These candles are already pre-charged. They need blooded, which is what this is for. You see I have 4 oils here. All of them are from Hersperidia. Really like the product. Really like the magician. But I was sitting out here and I was hearing some really loud voices. Right? And I would show you, but that could dox where I live. So there were some kids outside and they were just right over there. They got flashlights and swords and all sorts of stuff. And so I sat here for about 10 minutes waiting to get the ritual started, right? And I'm like, all right, I mean, they're having a good time. They're being disrupted per se. If I wasn't doing this ritual, I literally wouldn't care. But I do want to get this ritual on. You can see how far gone this coal is. Right. Right, the sides are falling apart because I didn't want to ruin the little adventure I was watching right outside my ritual space. So finally I opened the garage door. I'm like, hey, you guys okay? And they're all about chest height to me, right? Not a big issue here. They said, well, so you guys okay? I'm like, yeah. It's like, all right, well, what are you guys doing? You having fun? Like, we're monster hunting. Like, which kind of threw me. I was like, all right. He was like, yeah, we've seen some dark figures around here. And in my head, I'm like, fuck, I haven't even started the ritual yet. But there are figures around here all the time. And I knew they were just playing. But in my head, that's immediately what I went to. Was like, fuck, I haven't even done it yet. And so they were like, yeah, do you have any swords? I got some equivalents, right? But I'm like, swords? What do you need those for? It's like, well, these are all plastic. It's like, does it hurt when you get hit with them? Yeah. Well, then that's good enough. Go beat on them. Okay. And then they all just kind of walked up the pavement. I'm like, how? No idea. No, I didn't even know who these kids were, right? I didn't recognize them. I thought I heard a name I recognized, but the person didn't say, oh, hey, X's dad, because that person would know my son. So, and if I heard the other name right, which is this person's brother, would have said the same thing. So our monster hunters promptly went north up on this lovely boulevard. It just so happened that they followed the same path that the fox usually takes when it runs up the sidewalk too. So, now that our ritual has been blessed by monster hunters, we should probably get started, right? But I do have this lamp here, and it's going to get lit for a little bit because I want to show you what I'm using. I am using four oils tonight, all of which are from Hersperidia. So let me get this. Sorry, this thing's on a tripod. Let me try to work it. All right, so we are looking at Shining Veil oil here. And the purpose of that is to, in case a lot of this is, all right, so this oil is going to work 2 ways. Yes, the oil itself is going to bless in this way. The entity is going to do what it needs to do for the other side, in case this is all a big sham, or it's just an excuse. I don't really need to know what it is, because I already got paid, right? Yeah. Sure, I could have gotten paid several thousands more, but I mean, that's just kind of the way it goes. But right now, what we're establishing is, was this true or not, right? And that's something that only somebody with a better vantage point than me would know. And that certainly holds with Hecate. So, the second oil that we are going to be using, oh crap, don't flick out on me like that. All right, is the cornucopia oil, right? And this is to help with the job situation. They were recently supposedly let go from a job. The details have been kind of wonky. Somebody that I've partnered with has a different opinion than, say, the story that was given. Actually, the story didn't really say much of anything, which is partially what made it wonky. But there we go. So we are going to, we are going to try to bless here. And if everything checks out, then, hey, everything checks out. It's not that big a deal. But if it doesn't check out, and I suspect that some of these things may not, then some of it's going to get reversed. Now, that's actually is why we have these different areas. I guess first let me get through the rest of this. I'm sorry. Next up, we have this dark enchantress oil. And the reason for this is to... it's really more to if they need help with the job or they need some empowerment to get over some of these hardships they have right now. The one of these things that talks about here is buying assortment in domination. And, a lesser form of that would be appropriate for this, right? If they need to seem assertive for a job, then that would be a really good idea, right? If they need to seem more capable, if these people need just kind of just that little bit to push them over the edge, like, yes, this is our candidate, then that would be an appropriate response for that, right? So we're going to go ahead and use this. Now, this obviously has some darker uses for it, but, two sides of the coin, right? And the last one we have here is the cycle pomp oil, right? Now, this says necromancy and cemetery work. Now, why would I be using that? Well, one of the problems this person relayed to us was that they have a family member who has some emotional issues that cause them to be a little bit chaotic sometimes, and it doesn't affect this person on the daily. It affects this family member for sure on the daily, but it doesn't necessarily affect this person on the daily. And so the reason for that is that I can then offer this, and the ancestors of them can help try to alleviate some of that situation, right? Because if they're going to bring it up in a reason for X, Y, and Z, then, it should be addressed with. And finally, we have this little black candle here with no oil. And what that black candle is it is also fully charged. All of these are going to get blooded. That's probably the only one that's not going to get oiled, but it represents first an offering, and it also represents that if some of these things are wrong, then the efforts that had maybe already been made would need to be reversed. And so there's an additional little buffer here, because if somebody's going to do something on my behalf, then, I kind of want to make sure that they're going to get theirs, right? And so that's what that's for. As you can see here, actually, I don't know if you can see here, we have a little spoon with our incense stuff in it. All right, now the second part of the ritual will be an Hecate unbinding ritual. So I'll have to clear all of this off and then start anew with that ritual. And I will do that. I'll just combine these. I'll just combine these videos, and then it'll look the same to you. So, all right. Sorry about that. We've already been at this for 15 minutes. So here we go. Actually, let me turn the music down because I like it. I like it loud, kind of not overwhelming, but close enough. All right, let's turn this light off. We don't need it. My Lady Hecate, I thank you for answering my call when I asked who would be willing, if necessary, for both sides of that coin for these requests. And you answered and clearly wanted it. And I thank you for that. I have these candles here in front of you, which you know are already charged because I've already spoken with you before I even started this video. You've been enjoying your incense since before this video even started, and I thank you again for accepting this dual task. As you know, my Lady Hecate, it is unclear how much of what was stated was correct, but there is some truth in at least most of it. I don't know about all. And if those truths are to be seen as 100%, then these candles should be 100% beneficial. But these candles themselves are just gifts, offerings. If I have been misled, deliberately, willfully misled, then I ask that you apply these blessings that I'm going to give on a scale you feel is appropriate to both them and to me. But the choice, my lady, is yours. For you see more clearly than I do, and you certainly know more clearly than I do what is what here, for it is very murky. I ask, I guess I don't really need to ask that you do this, for you have already said you would, but I am thankful that you will. And your decisions are yours, and I respect them. These candles, the energy I have in them, that which I will blood them with, and the oils, which you can reverse if you needed to, are yours to do with as you see fit. Naturally, this black candle over here, you know what it is for. For something needs reversed, I don't want my offering to be reduced if it is used. And if it is not used, then that is for you to do as you see fit as an additional offering. Thank you. My dark queen, hail Hecate. And I will bleed on your candles. I will oil them with the oils of I have said. And I will let your judgment stand as you see fit. Hail Hecate. Actually, don't know if that's even seen. Don't matter. All right, here we go. All right, now you'll notice, well, at least I hope you notice, I can't really see, but I don't blood the area down here where my fingers are because it doesn't make sense. I also don't blood the top, so it doesn't ruin the wick in any way. This also gives me clear areas that I can touch when I go to oil this or some other thing. Like if I were taking, like if I had powdered some myrrh, powdered some frankincense, you know, put it in a mortar and pestle and then ground it up, then I would know where I could touch, right? If I do it the same way. And that means I'm not taking away in any way. In this case, in my offering. But if your herbs and things like that are critical to your spell work, mine aren't, then that is something to keep in mind, that you need places where you can grab. So you always know you can grab here. You always know you can grab here. That's actually pretty important to know. Because if there are things I don't short, at least intentionally, then it's going to be entities, even if I created them, entities making my will known in the world, right? You probably can't see it with this lighting. There's one thing also don't forget to do. Hecate. Now, here we go. Again, we have the Shining Veil oil. If you can see it, you probably can't, but there are some job needs, new job needs going on there. Fine. Happens to everybody. There we go. Now you might ask if I'm going to rub off the oil from the one candle to the other, and if these were for different entities, I absolutely would. But I won't. Instead, rub the excess onto this black candle, for the black candle doesn't care. Next we have the cornucopia oil. Go. All right, Dark Enchantress. Finally, for the ancestors. Now, for the ancestors, I will also be, actually, I just haven't got it out yet. It's right over here. I will be lighting some incense for them specifically. Okay. Give me a minute. Now, this really long, oh my god, open, for fuck's sake. All right, so this really long stick is actually wormwood. It's a long stick of wormwood incense. That I got off of AliExpress. And I was just told I should oil that with this oil, so therefore I will. Here, let me make sure you can actually see what I'm doing here. Okay, so stick isn't exactly large. It's thin. We do want to make sure it burns. So how are we going to do this? Like that. If you have jaw sticks like that, just put some on your finger and then just rotate the incense. I don't know if you can see it, but there'll be shiny marks and not shiny marks. Of course, it's easier to see in daylight, but you can do that with blood too, because if you push too hard on it, it's going to break, right? But if I am told to do that, well, I was requested to do that. I could say no, but why would I? All right, let me... And that is part of the cycle pump oil there. Since Hecate is a cycle pump, that totally makes sense. Okay, so what are we going to do now? Everything's been at least blooded. Most things have been oiled, just not that. This has. But it didn't bleed for the ancestors' incense. And I usually don't. Right? Just as an FYI. So, here we go. What I will do is I will take this candle right here, and I will use it to light the rest. Because it technically is a neutral candle. It could be both beneficial or not. There we go. Hail Hecate. So now his request will get worked on. I could have put them in a single thing, but it seemed more appropriate to divvy it up just because there are just so many facets. There could have been 6, 8, 10 candles, 12, easy, if I wanted to break it down into like specific things, like really specific things. You know, that could have happened, but 4 is going to be enough, especially with the hinge candle. Hail Hecate, and thank you. Hail Hersperidia for their oils, which I seem to use more and more. But most importantly, hail Hecate, and thank you. All right, welcome to part 2, which hasn't started yet. What I'm really want to illustrate here is that I have had to make room in my ritual space for the next bout of the ritual. Now, I do encourage you to keep an eye on how hot it is up here if you have an overhanging shelf, because you may smell smoke someday. Just saying, you might. Now, over here is my statue to Pazuzu, right? So between rituals, he asked me for some incense. And as you can see right there, I obliged, right? There are 2 cones down there of incense for Hecate, which she requested. And then there are 2 cones over here for Hecate that she requested. And if I have it, I'm largely not going to say no. Now, have I used Pazuzu lately? And that answer is no. No, I haven't. I have done a lot of traveling for work. He is the primary entity I use for traveling to work. As in traveling for, excuse me, not to. And, excuse me, I still have to get the paper for Hiyaku's portion of this, but I don't necessarily have a give and take like that with all of the entities that I work with. I work with a lot of entities, right? It's probably pretty obvious at this point to anybody that doesn't know me. That's been happening for years. I do also want to say, for safety's sake, I did change out this lancet. This is not the same lancet I used for the first part of the ritual. Because quite frankly, if I decide to make a blood offering with, say, a scalpel in ritual, I'm not looking to... my enemy is going to bleed for me, right? I'm bleeding to show that I'm willing to bleed to get this goal achieved, right? Blood, sweat, and tears, right? I take it literally, and I literally put my blood where my mouth is. So, blood, sweat, and tears. So, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to risk blood poisoning for an enemy. Because if I'm cursing him, why the hell would I want to suffer any more for them? That doesn't help my ritual. That just kind of fucks me up, right? Not worth it. So, what are we doing here? We are doing the... Well, I would say we are doing the unbinding ritual for Hecate. In this case, she knows that it could go either way. Now, I suspect it won't. But it may. Now, if you're doing a ritual and you're wanting to do this on your own with your own juice, you absolutely can do this. It does take the energy. The difference, though, is actually that would be it's a completely separate topic almost, because there's a whole lot that have to go involved. And we're not talking about this, oh, if this doesn't work, then reverse it, right? Yeah, that's cute. I'm talking about like at the non-trivial level, right? Because that's just trivial, right? Some little shall not harm me clause is pretty trivial, and quite frankly, it's probably not going to work against. Well, if I actually notice that somebody comes in on me like that, it's probably not going to work, right? So what I'm saying though is that an entity is a really good way of getting around things like mirror spells, which are really only as good as the person that made them. I know they have a great thing. They have a great following, but it's usually among... if something's really fucking easy, then there are different levels of doing it, right? And so the lowest levels of doing it are not going to be terribly effective. And they're not going to be terribly effective against somebody else who is well above that level kind of thing, right? So just keep that in mind. So how am I going to do this then? How am I going to do this? If I'm using... Because Hecate is known for binding and unbinding. She's known for tangling and untangling. Right? And I said it that way on purpose. There are several visualizations I have with her in Paley's Grimoire that I wrote. And those usually have to deal with natural elements and thorns. But it can also have to do with natural elements and leaves. Why? Because leaves would kind of obfuscate. It's harder to see into a super thick bush, right? But in wintertime, we get to see what the rest of the, at least, in cold climates, we get to see what the rest of the landscapes look like when all the leaves are gone. So there are a lot of different uses for this. And so what am I going to do here? Leaves. The leaf, which this isn't actually in... This isn't in Paley's Grimoire. So you're getting a little freebie here. So what are we going to do? The vine is there all year round, right? So let's do the vine. Notice how I'm not terribly artistic. That's fine. I don't have to be. There are a lot of things that you can do with this paper too, but let's just deal with this. All right. So the situation we have right now is unclear, right? Do we need it to be bound? Unbound? Do we need things to be... Do we need clarity on their end? Well, we don't really know. Because we don't know what the truth is. Which is like, why, Norse? Why are you doing anything at all? Because it doesn't really affect me. But it does affect a friend of mine. Right? Who is being affected by this. And so I will get no, at least that I'm aware of, I will get no, there will be no gain for this for me outside of knowing what was true and what wasn't, as far as can be known. But my friend, though, my friend could use that. So what are we going to do? We're going to use dashes. Oh my God, that's, holy fuck, Norse, that's, yeah. Now, in Paley's Grimoire, we talk about Hecate stuff, and usually there's going to be three leaves, there's going to be 3 thorns, right? And where those thorns are largely up to me, and they're symbolic of where I want the directions to go. Do I want something bound in? Well, then the thorns are going to purge inwards, and I'm going to have an area right here with the target, right? The leaves normally don't matter. Put them wherever the hell you want, right? You make them however you want. They're going to look like shit, I promise, because it's me. So, but here, the leaves are important. They may be obscuring the truth. But how do I know where to put them? And the answer is I don't. Now, could I go out through some lengthy process? Could I get out a pendulum? You know, could I use a Ouija board? I mean, could I toss some tarot cards or something? Well, if you know me, you know I'm not going to toss some tarot cards because I don't use tarot cards. And there we go. So instead, what I am going to do is that since I've already asked Hecate to handle this for me, I'm going to be smart enough to listen to Hecate. And so here's what she's kind of telling me, right? She's saying, my description of the person is going to be here. She's saying that I need 2 stems here, 1 stem down here. The exact placement is, you know, these are stems from the leaves. They don't exactly, they wouldn't matter to me, right? Dashes here. The stems are going to be strong right here. These aren't dashes for the stems, but the leaves are going to be dashed because it's ephemeral. She's saying I need a solid thorn here, a solid thorn here, and a solid thorn here. Why? To hold the target in place, right? Now, does that necessarily make sense to me? Well, no, it doesn't. Not at this level, right? But that's what she's saying, so that's what I'm going to do. All right, so let me just go ahead and trace these lines here. And sometimes this literally is how it goes. I mean, I've showed this form of ritual several times over. Different ways, thorns in, thorns out. The leaves were never the issue. And she doesn't care, per se, how the leaves are done outside of where they are, which is symbolic. And since I am a proponent of, oops, sorry, shit. Here, sorry. I don't know if you can hear it, but our monster hunters are back, but they're in another part of the yard. All right, go back over here. I know it looks like a chili pepper. This is like one sick as hell leaf, but this way it goes. All right. All right, and these lines are literally just to frame the reference of it. Okay, all right, now our monster hunters are running down the street. I think we should be okay. All right. Sorry about this, but when it, you saw me go like this, and what I was doing there was, in my head, I was removing the solid parts of those lines because it's all symbolic anyhow. But that's what she said to do. Now this area is blank because it is literally going to be, okay, the person, oops, with the, not with it, that'd be kind of cool, but, you know, with the multiple problems discussed the other night. And she knows who this is. I mean, they know who your target is. All right. So I said before that this is, that there's a lot you can do with this sheet. Now, what am I going to do with this sheet? Well, the sheet is also going to be an offering. Now, this candle here, burp. All right, this candle here is for hers. I haven't charged it yet. I'll have to do that. Of course, I'll spread it over to the paper after I bleed on the paper, because this is, actually, let me move this group of candles over here before it burns my shelf down. Because this is still a petition. It's more of an active petition, but it's a petition, right? If you toss a whole bunch of shit into something, you know, I don't give a shit what kind of cauldron you got, do all these rituals, stuff like that, and you're calling on entity, it's a petition. It still is a petition. Now, it could be a hybrid petition, which is what mine are, or it could be a safeguard, if you will, but it's still a petition. You're still asking. We are still adding our energy into this. I'll still be adding my energy into this, but this is going to be free of the intent. This candle is free of the intent. This candle is pure energy. It is an offering. She could take this job and shuck it, you know, and she wouldn't. I'm not saying that, but she could. And this candle will still be hers to use, right? All the energy in it, it's a neutral energy. That's my way with a lot of these spirits. You know, I may pay up front, but I pay really fucking well, right? And that's what I do. This whole page, I am here. Just do it right now. Charge this. Go ahead and charge this page, right? The energy in that page is theirs for them to use, because they have a choice when I give them energies like this, right? They can use the energies from these items, this candle, this page, the blood, or they can use their own, and then they can turn this into whatever the hell they want, which is a pretty valuable thing to do, right? It's kind of like I don't want to say that. So, all right, enough talk. More screw it. Let's do it. Here we go. All right. So, how do I charge the candle like this, right? It's pretty simple. I can either pull from generic energy around. What I'm not going to do is I'm not going to pull from my core. What I call my spark, if you've read my other stuff, I don't pull from my soul, if you will. There are a lot of ways you could say it, and I don't like any of them, but they could all kind of be true in one context or another. But I have no problem, like right now, charging this candle full of energy. I can make it a loaded candle where I take the energy and I push it down, kind of compact it a little bit, and then load it more. I can do that several times if I want. That's the way that goes, right? And when you kind of have to fake it till you make it if you don't have energy skills, but it's important to remember that this is an offering. Okay. Now here, it's also part of the working. So we're going to put this on here. And oops, guess I donated that part. All right, but anyways, so really we're just charging these candles. I can charge with my personal energy. One way that I would suggest for other people to do it is to, because I used to do it this way, so I'm not just saying, oh, I think others should blah, 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 me on my high horse. No. What you can do is you can use some of your energy, but then you need to restore it from something else, like the Tao, right? Divine energy. It doesn't matter because they can always convert what you've given them. And so I don't typically use divine energy. I use like a neutral, light energy, right? It's just bland, standard, things. Unless they ask me for something else, if they do, that's different, and that's personal, and I take it as such. But usually, if I just pull energy from around the area, not necessarily from the trees, although I could, but just the general area, that's usually going to be enough for a small offering. And that should be good. If you need more help than that, then I would suggest looking at some of my energy work videos and articles on my blog. Because if you just come to me and say, hey, I want to know how to do this, that's exactly what I'm going to tell you. And once you give me some questions that are a little bit more specific, then we may get into a dialogue. But no, just generic energy in here that they can use for whatever the hell they want. And in some cases, this can actually get used to pay the spirits that they use. Like if they have legions or things like that, or similar, can be used to pay for that. So, I talked a lot. Let's roll. Time to bleed. Shazam. There we go. Blood, sweat, and tears. I usually call this finger painting. It's a nice way of sterilizing, while also being a little bit cheeky. Huh. Now, the truth is, do I have to cover this with blood? And the answer is no. No, I don't. You don't. If they're willing to accept the task and they know they're not going to get it, then you don't have to do it. But this is me. I pay well. And I don't just cultivate transactional relationships for the most part, especially not with Hiyaka, whose theoretical homeland, or at least abode, not necessarily homeland, I am going to soon again. I'm pretty excited about that. Not because I like Hawaii. I don't particularly care about Hawaii, but I do. The first time I met Pele was in her backyard on Hawaii Island, and I've never forgotten that. Of course, the volcano was erupting then. And really, I'm just entertaining you with the story now because I'm bleeding on this thing, and that's kind of boring. But it is true, though. It was like a week before Abaddon and Belial in ritual said, hey, you're going to have some work while you go on vacation to Hawaii Island. I lived on Oahu at the time. I'm like, yeah, all right, yeah, cool. What, you going to harass me with some entities or something? Yeah, well, it didn't quite work out like that. But if I had met Pele, I can't say I wouldn't have, but I don't know that I would have met Hiyaka. And according to Hawaiian lore, at least according to people more smart than myself anyways, there are 16 different Hiyakas, or at least 16 different references to Hiyaka. And I'm not going to pretend to know what those are because I don't. I have them listed in Pele's Grimoire, which does have references, and I still don't know. So right now you could be saying, oh my God, Norris, why aren't you sitting there thinking about what you got to do? Because I already have. I've already told them about what the task is. In this case, it's a complicated task. You can go one way or the other. So if you've noticed that this doesn't need emotion, and that I don't have to put a lot of emotion into it, you would be absolutely correct, because that wouldn't do a goddamn thing. That is not beneficial. This isn't a target that I need to release emotion against. I don't have any built-up emotion for this target. And that's the only time that you should really be using, in my opinion, emotion when you don't have to. Okay. Now, if you want to, that's, who the hell am I to say what you want to do? But there you go. But I will say this, though. You can be disinterested in a target, but your friend may care. Or a couple of friends. Whatever. Client. You don't have to drudge up and re-traumatize yourself with emotions that no longer serve you in that same capacity just to get fuel for your ritual, if you can access outside or external to you sources of fuel. All right. That aside, it is now time to cover this with that candle. As I do, let me grab the let me move some of the steps aside a little bit, and let me grab the burn bucket, which didn't quite fit here, so here we go. All right, so it's here. This is still hot. Let's move to the side. All right. Okay, here we go. You can wear gloves if you want. This light over here is really on, so you can kind of see what's going on. Not that it's like killer crucial, or I've done this before, I've demonstrated it before. I do recommend a pair of tongs like that. They're super handy for not getting burnt, but they're also handy like at times like this. You got this kind of this kind of area that you need to cover. That candle can get kind of small. Now, in theory, I could act. All right, so I'll tell you about this. One thing you can do if you need to speed this up a little bit is literally turn a fan on in the room a little bit. Not necessarily directly blowing on it, because that's going to affect how the wax drips. But the more the wax drips, though, it's just flame. You're adding additional air into it, so it's going to burn a little bit hotter. This can get short a little fast. So keep some tongs here. Because last time I was in Hawaii, where I learned this technique, there was just a coastal breeze that you couldn't really you couldn't really prevent when you're doing things outside, right? So tongs. I guess those are tweezers, though. You know what I mean. Come on now. So if you wanted to ask, do I really need to do this? The answer is no. No, you don't. This actually serves a couple of purposes, mostly from Pele's Grimoire. And the purpose of it is a couple-fold. One is to keep you focused on the outcome and the task. It's easy to get lost. Sometimes, especially when it doesn't affect you directly necessarily, right? Or somebody you don't even know. All right, like here, this is for a friend of mine. They still are owed, and I'm not. So no, you don't need to do it this way. You can just let this candle burn. So why do it this way? Well, one is it puts more of your intent into the ritual itself. I've considered going into details about why I think that matters and where I think it doesn't. And I can almost guarantee it's going to piss somebody off because I just seem to do that. And mostly just because I don't accept things just because they're dogmatic. I just don't. I don't care if somebody's been doing this for 200 years the same way. It sounds like other people should have been doing it differently, or they didn't change it because they wanted to do it more efficiently and didn't want to tell anybody. So then you got competition. But that's just me. So here you can see that we have a sizable amount of the candle that is already gone. And do I have to cover this whole vine and all the leaves? No, I don't. I could maybe. That doesn't really come into play when I do stuff like this, right? I will cover what I can because it doesn't change what the candle is, right? And you can say, oh my God, well, what value does that candle have? You're already melting it. You're right, I am melting it, but the wax isn't burnt, right? Even as the wax burns through this process, that energy is getting released. They're still getting that energy for the purpose that I decided it should go for. But if you are, say, short on time, and I already said that these candles can be influenced by wind, you could take a really low breeze and burn this candle much quicker. And instead of having to wait for 50 minutes, an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on the candle, right? You spend half an hour here, and then it burns in less than 10 minutes, right? On this page. So you've saved some time. So if you're in a pinch, there you go. Shazam. All right. I still love it when the candle just sizzles like that when my blood gets burned. I don't really know why. I don't feel like it's... I don't know. I'm just talking right now because this is boring. And so I might as well just go ahead and run my mouth a bit, and then you don't have to sit here and watch stuff getting dropped without some kind of infotainment. Sometimes there's information. Well, you can already see the wick and how long it is. You could tilt the candle, and if you do that, it does change the burning scenario for this wick. Now, eventually, we do want to burn the paper with this candle. We don't have to, though, but prefer to. I prefer to. You do you. But once this starts getting right about here, then I'm going to start reaching for these. I almost call them tongs again. These tweezers. And then that's where that goes. Because what we're doing right now is we are burning some of the wax, which releases some of the energy, but we are also dispersing the wax, so the whole of it burns quicker. So now, since this is, in this case, since this is a gift, an offering, it's not the same as if you are putting a working into a candle and then burning it that way, which, I mean, you absolutely can't do. And sometimes you might. Sometimes you want a slow release. I have candles. A lot of the healing stuff, though, sometimes I'll do, if it's on like a maintenance track or something like that, yeah, I might just go ahead and flood a candle with healing energy. And then I'll, that's directed towards a specific person, specific group, usually a person. And then burn that over time. That's usually how I'll do my I don't want to say buff, but it's kind of what it is. It's more of a buff. It's not like a full-blown instant ritual. It's more of a blessing over time. So, you see this is getting short. So do I have to sit here with that? No. But here in a minute, you'll see how large this candle is. Now, if you just go straight up like this, I've burnt my candle out before doing that, but so don't do stupid stuff like that like I did. It's gonna get hot here. All right, there we go. That's usually where I stop it. Okay, and we still have some areas here. Doesn't matter. It's just fine. So. Lady Hecate, queen in your own right, I thank you for your acceptance of this task. I thank you for the dual nature of this task that you have accepted. And I ask that you please carry it forth as you've agreed to. And while I do apologize for the dual nature of it, that is not due to me. Hail Hecate. Yeah, see that? Yep, there we go. If you can see the wax at the bottom there, that's going to burn. It's going to take a long time to burn. So I'm going to turn up this fan, which I use for exhaust. You should too, my opinion. You do you. But now compare that candle with these from the ritual we were just in. See what I mean? Now, for those interested, this is a stainless steel mixing bowl that my wife decided she didn't need anymore, which I haven't seen her use, so that would make sense. Absolutely great for things like this. If you were to look at my Cosdea thread, all my fire scryings with Cosdea were done in a smaller version of one of these. It was a set of 3 bowls. I did burn through one of the bowls. It literally had a crack at the bottom after a scrying event, and now I have 2. So. Alright, this is going to keep burning for a while, so I'm going to go ahead and end the video here. Hail Hecate, hail Hecate, and hail any that are helping them with these tasks. Thank you.